morning. God bless each and every one of you. I received a card last week for Pastor Appreciation Sunday. And after the end of the kind words, they said, P.S. We won't hold it against you that you're a Patriots fan. Now we know the Seahawks and the Patriots play tonight at 5 o'clock. And I want to tell you that I will not hold it against you that you root for a loser. I won't do that. I will not hold that against you. That root for the Hawks, because it's just they're going to lose. So, but that's okay. You're still friends. You're still nice people, even though you don't understand. Hallelujah. That's too bad. Those who wrote that note's not here this morning. So, all right, we're in Luke chapter 15 this morning. Continuing looking on with the prodigal son story that God gave as an illustration. We know the son took all of his goods. Dad, give me all that I deserve, all that belongs to me, and I'm going to go exploring. Dad knew that possibly to argue with his son and to try to change his son's mind potentially meant that his son may never return. Hear that now. Sometimes, folks, we just got to let our children go. As bad as I want to pastor my grandchildren, because I pastored my children and their spouses, they don't live here. They don't live here. Sometimes you just got to let the child go. And sometimes to argue with them or to debate with them will just drive them further away. Hear the wisdom of the Spirit this morning. Say amen. Yeah. Hear the wisdom of the Spirit this morning. It may seem right in your eyes, in our eyes, to say certain things. We mean well. But the reality is the spirit of the condition means that if I interject good intentions, the opposite could be its effect. And I perceive that the father did not argue with his son, but rather just gave him what was owed him in heritage, blessed him, and as he left, prayed for him. The Lord said, Peter, the devil would have sifted you even as wheat, but I've prayed for you. Judas, you shouldn't do what you're about to do, but go and do it anyway. Peter found repentance. Judas committed suicide. I've prayed for you. Hallelujah. Somebody say amen. Amen. So this morning I want to look at the Father. Pick it up at verse 18 of chapter 15 of Luke. And the son finally said, I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. Verse 20. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. Now, let's stop right there for a few moments. And let me try to paint a picture. We don't know how long the son was gone. I perceive at minimum months, possibly years. And I believe that the father, after several weeks, at least a couple times a day, he would go out to the edge of his property and look to see if possibly his son was coming home. Possibly at noon, he would go out and look at the edge of his property and say to himself, maybe he's been walking for several hours now and maybe today's the day. So he would go to this end of his property and he would look to see, knowing that potentially his son would return from either the east or the west. No son at this moment. Would go back and do his daily chores, his daily work, running the business. And then just before dusk, he once again would wonder if possibly his son had been walking all day, and he would go to the far edge of his property and would stand and would gaze and wonder if today was the day that my son would return. Not today. I believe day after day, week after week, at least month after month, the same routine. We have to understand that this is God telling the story. You understand that? Amen. This is God telling the story. This is his heart telling the story. Next day he would go out at noon and look. Maybe today would be the day. Evening he would go out and look. Maybe today would be the day. He would look hard at the sunset, the horizon. Not today. Each morning as I drive to Genesee, the last several weeks, pondering and meditating upon this message, each morning as I drove to Genesee, I imagined looking over the hills, the rolling Palouse hills, and I imagined what the father experienced as he would go to the edge of his property and look over this near rolling hill, nothing. And then he would try to set his gaze upon that furthest rolling hill as far as his eye could see, to maybe catch sight of his son. Day after day, week after week, month after month, no son. As I pondered this, I became over trying to perceive if I was that father and my son was that son. And I was overwhelmed with emotion. And then one day, Father went to the edge of his property. And as he had done repetitively for days and weeks and months, maybe even years, and this day he gazed once again as usual. Do you think it could be? And he recognized his son's walk. He recognized his gait. And he knew from afar off it wasn't a stranger, but it was someone he knew well. And as he saw it, he began to be overwhelmed with joy. And the scripture we just read said, he ran. The father ran to the son. Not the son ran to the father, but the father ran time out. To the son. Somebody say amen. Amen. Our elliptical will be here on Tuesday, and I'll get back into better shape. Promise. The other one broke. He ran to the son, and that wasn't enough. He fell on his neck and began to kiss his neck. Now let's get into some Bible study. Specifically, he kissed his neck as a representation of enduring affection. Enduring affection. Verse 21, and the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. The father would not have any of it. Now listen to me. I think most dads would have, not only would they have not have run to their son, but they would have stood like this. And as the son got closer, would say something along these lines. So you decided to come home, did you? Spend everything you had? Did you come with any money? Probably didn't, did you? Spend everything. You look a mess. You look a mess. When's the last time you took a bath, a shower, or cut your hair, for crying out loud? I know you would, wouldn't you? Just like, that's why I'm preaching this message. Because there are some of you here who need this bad. So you decided to come home, did you? Now, folks, understand, it's not in here. It's my job to put it in here for you. Understand wisdom. There's a huge difference, like I said in Sunday school, between love and tough love. There's a time for love, unconditional love, and there's a time for tough love.